Hello and welcome to an introduction to Lincroft Academy, our SEND provision and what transition will look like this year, especially for our students with SEND. My name is Tom Johnson and I'm one of the assistant principals here, the SENCO and a lead for inclusion. The aim of this presentation is to give you a brief context to Lincroft, how we provide for the needs of our students, an overview of our transition process, the specific process for certain groups of students, and to give a list of useful contacts at the end. All of this is to support your understanding of our setting and to try and answer as many questions that you might have. Our care values, which has been developed in collaboration with our student voice, are embedded throughout our school community. As you can see, alongside academic aspiration and progress, support and personal growth are central to what we aim to achieve, building upon the foundation of primary schools. Our approach is that all of our students are known and valued, both academically and pastorally. One thing we are committed to is investing in an environment that is purpose-built for our students, that offers them access to high-class facilities, available and accessible to all. Having already opened our new dining hall and dance studio last year, we are now well into our next phase, and our three-storey building for the arts and technologies, maths and MFL is opening after half term. We're also refurbishing other sections of our school, like our sensory spaces and inclusion spaces. Inclusion is at the heart of our school. It is planned for academically, pastorally, as well as physically within the environment and what we offer. It is thought about when we create policies and review our practices. It's in our staff training and how we want to continually develop the Academy. The developments and creation of the 5 pillars of inclusion is part of that investment, which you'll hear about more later. It is not just inside our school as well. Our curriculum also includes learning outside of the classroom, offering rich experiences to all of our students. Although we will look at a range of aspects of our school in this presentation, it's important to point out that the first layer of support, that ordinarily available provision to all students, starts in the planning and delivery of lessons. In our Care to Teach framework, the second principle focuses on inclusive learning and how we expect classroom teachers to be able to adapt and support students' needs. A large part of delivering our inclusive aims has been through our house system. As a growing school, this was established to create the feeling of a smaller environment, a school within a school. Each student is part of a house, which has its own office, set of tutors, student support assistant, senior tutor and head of house. Each house takes up an area of the school and its colours highlight that faculty and building. So this is how the school breaks down, from the total number of students within the setting to the number of students within each form group from each year. Each house will have 260 students in it, with around 52 students from each year group. Each house has 10 to 11 tutor groups, which means that tutor groups in the mainstream school have around 26 students in. We have a vertical tutoring system, which means that there are 5 to 6 students from each year in each tutor group. The exception to this is the 3 tutor groups that we have currently in our enhanced ARC provision. This is a tried and tested method across Meridian House, and we have certainly felt the benefits since its implementation at Lincroft. It means that the experiences from each year group are shared throughout the year to all students. Whether that's options, work experience, mock exams, GCSE exams, every year students are exposed to these aspects through their peers and announcements. So it's not something completely new when they get to these points in their journey through Lincroft. It builds consistency. You have the same tutor for 5 years, so you get to know that tutor really well and build that relationship. Families are also in the same house, so you get to know the house team, but siblings are not in the same tutor group. Form is also just the first 30 minutes of every day. After this, your lessons are with your own year group in subject lessons, where you mix with different people from different houses. The house team also plays a large part in delivering that supportive model within school. It is the house office who are the first and most important contact for you to reach school and other staff members. We'll talk later about the graduated response, and they are central to the monitoring and implementation of that. All tutors are teachers, and those adaptations and reasonable adjustments begin in the form rooms and in the classrooms as well. To support the houses, we have developed distinct areas that are used and accessed when an extra layer of support is needed. We can layer the response to a student's needs in this way. The 5 pillars have been designed around creating spaces with a distinct purpose to meet certain needs. This has been developed again for next year with additional sensory spaces and refurbishment, but this model is how it currently operates. You can see that the house office is the first of these pillars. This is accessible to all students in that house. It deals with everything from a forgotten planner to a mentoring conversation. The second room is called the pivot. It's where we can triage anything that crops up during the day. The idea is that it's a transition space where students can be seen and heard before being directed to one of the other rooms or back to their lessons. The compass, previously called the inclusion hub, leads off from the pivot room. It supports the social and emotional needs of our student and is a quiet, consistent space. We can also use this space as a meet and greet for a small number of our students in the morning, as it is a smaller environment for people to enter into. The restoration room is set up like a classroom and supports making sure that students are classroom ready. The bridge is where the majority of our academic interventions take place, either during form time or throughout the day. Interventions and small sessions are delivered here, and again, it is set up like a small classroom. This has its own timetable where different year groups access it as part of their curriculum. The aim is to accelerate their learning and close any gaps so they continue to access their lessons with their peers. These rooms are housed in a building near the centre of the school, and although they have different purposes, they all work together to support our students. It means that we can timetable a student into different rooms to meet their need. You will also notice that the counselling room, where our school counsellor, emotional or literacy support assistant also deliver their sessions, is very close to the inclusion hub. The final area that I also want to introduce you to, which is a large part of what makes our school so special, is the ARC, our Autism Resource Centre. The ARC is a very important part of our school. It is an enhanced provision for 32 students who have been consulted separately from the mainstream school. Students who access the ARC have an EHCP where the primary need is based around a diagnosis of autism and the needs associated with that. Our aim is to integrate students as much as possible, accessing mainstream lessons with support which is built up over time on individual plans. They have a bespoke transition into Year 7, which begins this year when they're still in Year 6. It allows them to be part of the wider transition with the rest of the upcoming year group in those 3 sessions that we'll talk about later, again at the end of Year 6. In the photo you can see one of our breakfasts with our senior leadership team, which has been one of a number of different activities created so our students will recognise us around the school and we can build those trust and relationships rather than be someone separate. These are some of the members of the inclusion team. Our deputy principal that leads on behaviour and attitudes is Mrs. Atreed, who is also a qualified Senko. You have myself as the Senko and Mr. Barry, who's our deputy Senko, and he also leads the ARC provision. Mrs. Taylor is our inclusion administrator, who is a vital part of our ability to function as a department. We have 3 inclusion support assistants, Mrs. Wild, Mrs. Tyler and Mr. Gordon. They work in our inclusion spaces downstairs. Mrs. Butler and Mrs. Oakhill have wider responsibilities within the TA team for the assessments of needs and delivering interventions, along with a wider TA team who also deliver interventions as well as support in the classroom. All EHCP students and some of those Wave 3 students who have a higher level of need have a key worker who's mentored once every fortnight. Miss Wright is our ELSA, our emotional literacy support assistant, and Mrs. McMurdy is our school counsellor. Miss Shelton and Mrs. Bird are our ARC teachers who work with Mr. Barry and the other ETAs who work and support in the ARC. Although we have a specific team as part of inclusion, part of our role is to make sure that all our staff have access to continual professional development around SEND. SEND training occurs throughout the year in every term. In the past, this has included training on maximising the impact of teaching assistants, and part of this year has been focused on understanding autism through the Autism Education Trust. We also have the benefit of having a very strong central SEND team within the Trust. Amy Wright, who's our Assistant Director for SEND for the Trust, leads our SEND-V network, which is once every half term, but she also coordinates the Teen Life programme with Mr. Barry, which are sessions to support our parents whose students might have a diagnosis of autism or on the pathway to a diagnosis of autism, or even we recognise that there are autistic traits that perhaps people are struggling with at home. Just like we have training for all of our staff, any member of staff can refer, raise or identify any concerns that they have over a possible special educational need, and that begins the identification process. Students and parents are part of this, and quite often a referral will be made through the house team after a meeting with the parent. We triage the referrals once a week to action and then monitor the impact of any support as part of our graduated response. The graduated response is a national and borough-wide initiative that effectively allows us to put provisions in place and monitor their intended impact. This is a document that supports that conversation with parents in explaining the reality of measuring impact over time. You can see the stages and actions as they move up and the different waves that they represent. As we get higher up the graduated response, all Wave 3 and 4 students have an Assess, Plan, Do, Review document, which is accessible through their profiles to all staff. And some might have an additional document like a 5-point plan, a safety plan, a medical care plan, or a PEEP. This means that all staff who are teaching the class have access to them straight away through Bromcom. We also have provision cards that some students carry around with them with all of their in-class adaptations on. These documents are reviewed throughout the year and adapted where necessary. Part of the APDRs will identify any interventions that will be taking place around that student. This is just an example range of interventions that we currently run at the moment due to our students' needs. We do have a dedicated team who are willing to adapt and learn. Every child is known is part of one of our key values, and we work at making sure that we are all informed about our students and how they are across all areas of the school. Every week we have a section in the staff bulletin where we put updates from our recent assessments or if a diagnosis is coming from outside of school. As a team, we meet weekly to discuss any relevant updates and things we might need to be aware of. House teams and curriculum teams are also part of that review process in their meetings. Core members of our senior team meet at least once every 2 weeks to discuss inclusion and achievement to make sure that we maintain that oversight of progress and support, but also on that individual level as well, where we discuss individual students. We work consistently with our local borough team as well as other agencies that might be working directly with our students, such as CAMS, or those that deal with other social and emotional issues. Lincroft Academy Autism Resource Centre, or the ARC, works with primary schools and families to develop a bespoke transition plan. Those students who have a place in the ARC will be contacted and you'll be informed of what this will look like. Typically, this might involve visits to Lincroft with trusted adults after school, visits from ARC staff to primary schools to see the environment and meet current staff, a graduated plan of visits to Lincroft ARC in school hours, which would initially focus on identifying and preparing workstations, meeting key staff, orientation around the school, and then implementing and explaining the de-escalation routines that we run here. We would then build in extended time periods for visits, so it might start off with 9 to 10, move to 9 to 11, etc. over time, focusing on small achievements. These might look like map reading around the school, bridging Key Stage 2 English and Maths to Key Stage 3 in social skills and games. We obviously discuss with families things like transport, uniform, medication, or any of the concerns they have. ARC students will also take part in the mainstream SEND transition days in order to encourage inclusion and friendship. All of our students will have welcome packs sent out to them while still in Year 6, so you know what we need to do when you join us. Data collection forms are sent to primary schools requesting all essential transition information, and we as a SEND team also send out forms specifically to primary SENCOs so that we understand and know what your students have had to support them so far. Where needed, and if the SENCOs at primary schools so that additional support is needed, we contact them and we'll have separate meetings to discuss individual basis for students. We also offer tools, which is normally led by our principal, and then we have 3 transition days. We have one that's specifically for SEND or for students who might be coming from like the only student from their school, and then we have 2 transition days where everyone is invited. We also have a transition evening that you're invited to as well as parents. We've already established those connections with primary schools. Mr Davis and Miss Apadu have already visited the majority of our feeder schools. We've also had contact with the relevant SENCOs, to ask about the interventions that have already taken place. We have already been in contact with a couple of our students for next year, but this will increase over the next half term. Primary schools return their information to us, and we then build any one-page profiles and APDRs before the start of the new year. If requested or necessary, additional tools are also organised, as well as visits. The first transition day is only for students with SEND, or if there are only a few students coming from that school. With a smaller number of students, we can get to know them and support them more, so that they are more familiar with the environment and staff before they meet the rest of their full cohort. The aim is to reduce any anxiety, and we can address any worries before they meet the rest of their peers. All new students coming into Year 7 join us for the second and third transition days, and this is where we typically share which house students will go in. The days are still based around team building, but there is also an opportunity to go into lessons and feel what this is like at Lincroft. Lots of information is passed over at this point, with maps and tours, meeting house teams, and generally getting to know the environment and how things work here at Lincroft Academy. Just to reiterate, if there is a need for a more bespoke transition, these are for students who have access to ROC or have been identified by the primary school and the local authorities through their EHCP, moving into our mainstream. Usually this is only 1 or 2 students. When this occurs, it's on an individual basis and it is in collaboration with the local authority and their SENCO at their primary school. We also believe that transition isn't just about a couple of days at the end of Year 6. As part of our training before the students arrive as Year 7s, I have a slot to update and make sure all staff are aware of our SEND students. We also choose to adapt the start of the year to welcome our new Year 7 cohort, and very early on in that term, parents are invited in to meet their tutors. This is a great opportunity for you to ask any new questions that have arisen since your child has started with us. Finally, I want to thank you for listening to this presentation and present a series of contacts for you if you have any further questions. At the top you can see our general administration email into the school as well as our website. The transition lead is Paul Davis, and you can see his email in the middle. If you'd like to contact us as a SEND team, you can use our contact SEND email address, which is also there. The local offer from Bedford Borough is the final one at the end of the page. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you for listening.